On this episode of ResiWeek, Wi-Fi 6 is here, Rayva moves into wellness, and Josh.ai adds audio control. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 198, Gray Tsunami.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Access Networks.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott, for AVNation.tv, and this week we are pleased to be joined by Bjorn Jensen. He is the president of Reboot. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty well, thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for being here. And we have one of my really favorite people in this business, Taff Strickland. He is the dude at Just Add Power. How are you, sir?
I am excellent.
And that's not a lie. I love you, man. You're awesome. You're so much fun. All right, gentlemen. And now that I've teed him up for hopefully success and possibly failure, let's kick this right off with a story that comes to us from Residential Systems. Wi-Fi 6. Are you ready? This is a story that comes to or is written by Nathan Holmes. He is a technical trainer for Access Networks. If you weren't at CDA Expo and you don't read anything ever, you may have missed the fact that Wi-Fi 6 is coming, and it is the latest standard that's almost here.
It's here.
It is here, yeah.
Here.
We're starting to see it. It's not widespread yet, as Bjorn is correcting me.
Sorry.
So Bjorn, let me start with you on this one. Obviously, read through the story. There's a ton of information that get into all the benefits, especially the greater efficiency that's going to happen with Wi-Fi 6. They also get into why they changed the names and all of that fun stuff. Is Wi-Fi as confusing to, we know it's confusing to consumers. Is it still that confusing to integrators? Is it one of those things that just no one seems to really, I don't want to say understand, but they don't fully wrap their heads around how it works and why all the different iterations are so important to know how they differ and change the functionality of the standard?
I wouldn't say nobody understands it, but I would say probably the vast majority don't have a good grasp on it. And I think I say that because a lot of people keep calling and saying, our client wants over gig speeds to show when they take their phone out and do a speed test. And I'm like, that's not something they're going to see for a while. In fact, we're moving to, instead of seeing those high speeds, we're moving to being able to get tons of people on the wireless network at once and having a reliable, solid connection. Things like multi-user MIMO, or what Nathan spoke about, the OFDMA. He didn't mention OFDMA, but that's basically what he was talking about with sub-channels. Mm-hmm. Right now, in the past where you had, the channel was being used, it could only be used by one device at a time. Now, maybe a frame only takes 300 megs, of data that's being transferred. And so the rest of the channel can be used by another device at the same time. That's basically going to speed up everything for us. And people keep thinking, so it's going to speed everything up as far as aggregate speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Overall speed, if one device connects, it's not going to see, the thing skyrocket up. And that's a hard conversation to have with clients, that all they want to do is show their friends, hey, look at my phone, look how fast it goes. Instead, we need to try to teach them, and the integrators need to understand this. They need to try to teach them, hey, it's not about that speed. It's, hey, I'm having a party at my house and 100 of my friends are connecting at once, uploading their videos, showing their videos, things like that. And as long as I still get those calls with people saying, hey, they're just trying to get the fastest speed possible on their phone to show their friends, I think they're not really grasping what it is. By the way, it was an excellent article by Nathan. He's an amazing guy. I don't know if you've ever met him before.
Yeah.
He's one of the most well-rounded people I've met. And really, I kind of wish he was working with us.
Well, and you do bring up a really good point, that this is why commercial networking has really made its way into the home, not for speed, but for user deployment, for the number of people that are connected to that. Taft, one of the things Bjorn brought up was, how you're not going to see those massive speed bumps. You're not going to see some of those things that we seem to expect are going to come with every new iteration of Wi-Fi. The conversation that I know I run into all the time is, well, everything can just be wireless now. When you see stuff like Wi-Fi 6 being announced and starting to ship in some of these devices, do you see that conversation continuing to be that big of a battle? Or do people understand these days that, yes, Wi-Fi is really important and we can get you a rock solid network, but you still have to have that backbone?
So the argument of everything can be wireless, I mean, we've even seen major home builders adopt that. And the more I talk to people, and I have two groups of people I talk to. I talk to people in the industry, and then I talk to my friends and neighbors who are like, I want better battery life. I want better Wi-Fi. I want my Wi-Fi to reach all the way into the back of my backyard. Why can't I upload and download this and this and this? And one question I get is, why am I faster on my wired Mac than on my iPhone? And this is, when I talk to people about stuff like this, it's baby steps almost. While this might be more than a baby step, if you look at, go grab an 8 or 10-year-old Linksys WRT router, throw it in, see how fast it is, because remember, we were all impressed with those things.
Uh-huh.
And then if you just do baby steps in your home every few years, or if you pull that out and drop a brand new Wi-Fi 6 piece in, it's huge. Now, I think the biggest benefit to Wi-Fi 6, somebody who lives and dies by mobile and drives an electric car, so I'm all about batteries, right? So it improves battery life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a huge drain nonstop. And you just, as I look at, I have a household with my wife, myself, 2 dogs and 2 daughters, and they're 7 and 9. And if I do a quick, thing on my network, it amazes me the number of wireless things that are on my network that I completely forgot about. So, as this becomes more robust, it gets closer to what consumers expect, because the promise of Wi-Fi was way too big when it first happened. And now I feel like they're just like, hey, look, we're almost there. We're almost there. And this is just one more giant step. Or potentially one more baby step. I haven't tested it, but I'm assuming with all the buzz behind it, that it's definitely a bigger step than we've had in the past.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I know we've played with it a little bit. It's good quality stuff. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next story of the day. This comes to us from CE Pro. Rayva is moving ahead with turnkey wellness rooms. If you again missed CD Expo, one of the biggest buzzes was at the back of the show floor. There was a wellness pavilion, a biophilia pavilion, if you will. And one of the purveyors of that was Rayva. They were showing essentially a relaxation room. And what they're trying to do is take their turnkey cinemas that they offer to integration pros and allowing them to turn those into a wellness space, whether it be, for yoga, for relaxation, for just chilling out. Doesn't really matter. They're giving you the ability to do that. Taft, I'm going to come back to you on this one. I'll say that it's been somewhat well documented that I'm still very on the fence about this. When I look at what Rayva is doing, I want to like it. I want to be impressed with it. But I also look at my clientele in Omega, and my clientele are not going to start pushing rows of furniture around to, repurpose their room into a yoga studio. It's going to be one or the other, or they're going to have a housekeeper or a cleaner or someone do that.
Yeah.
Is trying to package this as a multi-purpose space, theater room or entertainment room. One night you can watch hockey or football or whatever the heck you want. And then in the morning, you can move everything out of the way so you can do some stretches. Mm-hmm. Is that the wrong way to package this?
Well, it's interesting because the evolution of multi-purpose, and let me first say, I live in Portland, Oregon, and I did goat yoga this morning. I don't know if you've tried it. It's kind of fun. Their hooves are kind of sharp.
I haven't yet, but it's on my list.
That was okay. There you go. That was a joke. So the multi-purpose theater room, you know, the number of multi-purpose rooms that were also a billiards room that had a bar in the back of the room, you know, that kind of multi-purpose, and then seeing this, and I think it really kind of is it's an interesting play. It's an interesting concept. And I do think that there is a market for that. I'm not sure exactly how large that market is, but I feel like everybody in our industry is trying to take advantage of, you know, we can throw out all the buzzwords, the gray tsunami, the number of people that are aging, you know, the boomers, the retirees, you know, all that type of stuff. I think it's an interesting concept. I think it's cool. I think there's a market for it. I don't know how large it is. And I think that I think it's pretty awesome that people in our industry are going, you know what, let's try this. Let's do this. So, you know, if you don't try, you don't fail. If you don't fail, you don't try, you don't succeed. So, you know, I was the guy 10 years ago when people were like, you mean you're going to send video over a cat wire over a network switch? That's dumb. Nobody ever going to do that. And, you know, and now we've watched everybody under the sun copy us. So, you know, I think it's an interesting idea. So it's not something, I mean, for me, I mean, my theater is a multi-purpose theater / where I keep guitars rooms, where my kids play, where they jump up and down on a love sack and can be crazy. And I have a cheap screen in case somebody decides to write on it again. So there's that.
The key was again. I caught that. Don't worry, I caught.
Oh yeah.
Again,
yeah, you caught that. Yeah, it's been a few years, so.
Very good.
Yeah.
You're discouraging me from turning our entertainment room into an actual 2-piece projection, as my kids are of that let's draw on the wall age. Bjorn,
washable markers, man. Throw away the Sharpies.
Yeah, I have a drawer of them, unfortunately. Bjorn, one of my biggest issues with the quote unquote wellness room or the experiencing nature room is we're not getting all the senses yet. In the story, George from Rayva mentions how they're working with a lighting company to figure out how to, you know, kind of map the sun and mimic that in those spaces. I'm still trying to figure out how long someone's going to be in the space to utilize that, but notwithstanding, I was in the woods this morning. The biggest thing I noticed as I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today was I was outside. It was cold. I could hear the birds. I could hear, you know, the squirrels. I could hear the rustling of a couple of the leaves that are still, you know, not fully covered in snow. I could hear a lot of stuff, but the bigger thing was the smell was different. Can we really go down this vein of recreating outdoor without trying to harness the smell? The smell for me is the part that I really have a hard stop on. Or is that just nobody's done it yet?
That's a good question. I mean, first let me say it was freezing this morning when I woke up too. It was like 70 degrees. And I mean, I had to put on a jacket.
That was about the same here. No, wait, it was 28. That was different. Yes. Sorry, continue.
I mean, smell's a hard one, especially, you know, in Miami, we can kind of say we can smell when it's about to rain. And it's weird. You do kind of smell something in the air. And I'm sure, you know, when you were out this morning, there is that kind of smell you just can't mimic in a closed environment. But a lot of our senses can be tricked by what we see, what we hear, you know, so it almost, if you get all the other senses there, maybe it can trick your mind into getting the smell. I mean, I don't know, that's a tough one. I know those 4D movie theaters, when you see a movie and then they like, you know, a little fart spray comes behind you or something, that stuff never really worked. You know, the scratch and sniff stuff that you'd see back in the 80s, you know, you'd watch a movie and you'd have like a card and you know, at certain points you had to scratch something, sniff it. I mean, it never really smelled right. It was never accurate enough. I don't know if that's ever going to work for them. I did notice in the article it said something about smell. I don't know how they would do that. But if they can get the other things there, maybe it'll trick your mind into believing you actually smell like you're outside.
All about being close enough, right? All right, gentlemen, let's go to our next story of the day. This comes to us from AVNation.tv. Audio Control is partnering with Josh.ai to enhance the home entertainment experience. Audio Control is one of the latest in a long line of manufacturers who are allowing their products to be fully controlled by products like Josh.ai. One of the big takeaways that I saw from this was the fact that, excuse me, the audio control products are auto-populating as soon as you put them into the Josh.ai web portal for configuration. It does the majority of that setup for you. So Bjorn, I'm going to come back to you on this one. One of the takeaways that we've continued to see with the expansion of voice control is configuration and getting the voice commands to line up with what you actually want to do in that space. How does the manner in which a lot of these manufacturers are going down of auto population so that there's minimal programming that needs to take place, how is that going to, or is that going to continue to advance how quickly people are adopting voice control?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost like back in the day with when universal plug and play first started, or if you built a computer way back in the day and you had to set LPT settings, IRQ settings, you had to set everything manually, and then eventually now you're at the place where you just kind of just plug it in, you turn it on, and everything starts working. I think that's the natural progression. I think Alex is really pushing for that, trying to make it as easy as possible. I mean, obviously with the audio control thing, it's going to automatically discover everything, but then you have to set what rooms, in the program, what rooms it's going to be accessible from, that sort of thing. Right now, I'm actually struggling myself because I have a Savant system, and we purchased Josh, and it doesn't really work. It only works with scenes,
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do a lot more configuration. For instance, what I'd like to be able to do is, because I'll set a scene for turning on lights in a certain room, because my lights, I don't have Lutron. So I have to use the scene with Savant, and then use Josh, set up a scene using Savant to turn on those lights. So I need to talk to Alex about this. What I'd like him to do is make a way to make that scene be known as a light. Because if the name is light, sometimes it'll run the scene. Sometimes it'll say, I don't have any lights in this room, because it thinks there are no lights.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could tell Josh, hey, this is a light, then it would work. But that goes back to what you're saying, is that it's not quite there yet. But I think eventually, through AI and through smart programming, you're going to be able to get a lot of that done. You'll still have to tell things what room it's in, especially if it's all on the rack. It's not going to know that. But other than that, it should be a pretty quick and easy setup. If you have all the stuff that works with Josh right away, it's really an easy setup, and it understands you amazingly well. And what I like about the audio control thing is it shows that they're actively trying to add more and more products, which will just make it easier. Almost like Control 4 is really good at that, is making partners and making stuff work with them. I think Josh is one of those companies that's trying to do the same. I mean, Alex wants to take over the world. I'm all for it.
Very much so. Taft, one of the things that Bjorn was alluding to, and one of the reasons that I'm such a Josh fan myself, is the manner in which you can interact with Josh. We haven't fully seen this happen with Google or Alexa yet, in the sense of having continual conversation mode. Is that the real sticking point still with taking voice control from kind of a, I don't want to say a toy, but from just a general convenience to a dedicated, hey, we can use this all the time?
Yeah. So I've got a handful of voice control things, just like everybody else. And so I've got some Alexa product in my house. I have some things integrated with it, because I feel like, the buzz is to work with Alexa on everything. Then, I'm an iPhone user, and I have been for years. So I have Siri, and she's, I think she's in some sort of language issue class trying to sort things out, because I'm pretty sure Siri thinks that I have a strange accent and can't understand me. And strange enough, the only thing that always works for me for voice control is in my car. With Tesla, I can say, you know what, I navigate to Andina or navigate to a Tuala, Cuban restaurant. And I'm not sure how to spell Tuala, and it finds it and it knows it every single time. I feel like Alexa hits it probably 90% of the time. And I feel like Siri hits it about 10% of the time. My phone just beeped when I said her name. So there, she's proving me wrong. She's actually listening. I feel like it's gotten markedly better. Initial Alexa had, I don't know what you're saying. And now I feel like it's learned my kids' voices and things like that. I'm excited for the next generation and the next level of it. Because, right now, like we have some lights in our house, and I just happen to name those lights poop pants. And my kids think it's hilarious. I'm like, turn on poop pants. And then, the lights turn on in the living room, turn off poop pants. And, it's fun to kind of show the creativity on the integration side to the kids and to have a little bit of fun and a little bit of humor with it. It's also great for dinner parties when you ask Alexa to do that. But a few years ago, saying that to Alexa, it would work, 8 times out of 10. Now it always works. So I think kind of that next level of logic and that next level of database, luckily I don't have an Irish accent because I think that's the worst for voice control to understand. But it's interesting to me because, I just feel like I talk like I'm from California, or I talk like the people on the news. The people on the news don't have a quote accent. I feel like that next level of understanding is going to be pretty exciting, and then it'll be even more useful. But I think what the guys from Josh have done over and above anybody else is phenomenal. And then the privacy aspect of it, which is something that, I myself am really worried that, someday somebody's going to be like, hey, I found out I was getting fired from Alexa. It's like, well, I was just saying you're a horrible employee and you spend too much money on travel. But I wasn't going to fire you for 3 more weeks. So there's all the privacy aspect of it, and our phones are listening to us, and I'm not paranoid at all. I can talk to somebody about something, and then I open Facebook, and lo and behold, it's there. And my own test is being a guitar player. I spent a week telling people that I hate Joe Bonamassa, the blues guitar player, which I genuinely do. I can't stand the guy. So I've seen him live before, and I've met him, and he's worse than Kenny Wayne Shepherd as far as like having an attitude. So just not a real down-to-earth person, and he's actually not that great of a guitar player. I could totally smoke him. That's a whole nother thing. But I spent a week talking about how much I didn't like him. Never typed the words, never did anything. And all of a sudden, my Facebook feed is filled with Joe Bonamassa, right? Mm-hmm. Then my kids say, hey, Alexa, play some music, and or play some fun music. And it's like, shuffling songs by Joe Bonamassa. And I'm like, what? And so there's that aspect to it. And I feel like we know the Josh guys. We can trust the Josh guys. The value in what they're providing privacy-wise, it's like 10,000 miles away from, Amazon and Mark Zuckerberg and Siri. I tend to trust Siri more than I do Alexa. They seem a little less evil, but I don't know. So
that's just because she can't understand you most of the time.
Exactly. She thinks I'm Irish or something. So, but that's kind of my whole entire take on where we are with voice, and my excitement behind Josh. I mean, they're integrated with Just Add Power. They're fun people. They're smart. They're awesome. And they have a sense of humor, which are all requirements to survive in our industry. But the privacy thing, I think, just really sets them apart from so many other things. Like, my wife's working on secret projects, and she works for a multi-billion-dollar company and runs patent and design work, and I don't trust her talking in front of some devices in our house. So call me paranoid, but there's there's that. There's also the first page of the owner's manual of your Samsung TV that says don't have private conversations in front of it. So, there's that.
So let me ask you guys this. Josh, to me, an amazing company is one that I continually watch expecting to get bought up. What happens to their, and obviously this is completely hypothetical, but what happens to their privacy advantage if they get purchased? Because we've seen that Amazon doesn't really care about your privacy. Google doesn't really care about your privacy. None of the big tech companies do. So if somebody's going to arguably, and again, I realize this is hypothetical, but if someone's going to take Josh to the next level and take them, quote unquote, global to the big dance, will that go away? Will they be able to hold it, Bjorn?
So I don't think they will. I mean, if somebody buys it out and takes it global, I think that's kind of the beginning of the end of the privacy part there, at least for the fact that we won't be able to trust somebody else. I am of the thought that Alex wouldn't sell it. The reason being is that, we had dinner here a long time ago when Josh was first starting, and this is like a passion project for him. He's trying to make basically Jarvis. He's got a long way to go, but he's made so many steps so far. I mean, if he did sell it, it would be, once he's gotten it to exactly where he wants to go and he just cashes out. I think he's got a long way to go, and I think this is personal for him. Kind of similar with me with my company. I mean, we've had offers, and I just, it's a personal thing. It's my baby, and I don't want to let go. I think it's similar with him, and I think he still has a very long way to go before he's going to be satisfied. So I think even if that does happen, it's a long way off. But if it does happen, it's a bigger company. I mean, who knows who buys it, if they have agreements with the government or with other governments or whatever. I'm kind of a paranoid guy with that. We don't have Alexa in our house. We have none of those things. I turn my phone off so it doesn't listen to Hey Google or anything like that. And turn off the cameras in our TVs, that sort of thing. So the only thing we allow in my house is Josh for that specific reason.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Bjorn, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Why Reboot, where can they do that?
whyreboot.com. Or our new access point mount on accesspointmount.com, which is a pretty cool product.
It's a very cool product. All right, Taff, thank you so much for being here, my friend. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Just Add Power, where can they do that?
Justaddpower.com. And then we're also on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we're on Instagram with all of the cool kids. So I heard the cool kids are on Instagram. So
I'll have to get you to teach me how to use that because I still seem to screw it up.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. I can't figure it out. So
I'm old. I've decided I'm old these days. So, all right, gentlemen, thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please stop by AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.